So before I fully introduce myself, I have a question for you guys. Who here considers themselves a maker? Maybe just a handful of hands. We'll get back to that. So I am an organizer, I am a researcher, but most of all, I'm a maker. And I've been making my entire life, from starting out with Legos and blocks and maybe a little bit of soldering, to crazy robots as part of first robotics, these tall 120-pound machines, tons of fun in high school, to now making LED wearables and masquerade masks and some large art installations. But making doesn't have to be just electronics and robots. It can be painting and soldering, it can be sewing, it can be art, it can be tinkering, tearing things apart, but it can also be drones, it can be sculptures and crazy, crazy puppets. But it can be taking apart board games or making your own. It can be both video and board. It can be wearables and fashion. And it can be programming, hacking, and tearing things apart. It can be music. It can be your own science experiments. It can be cooking and baking. Trust me, one of my favorite bits of making. But it can also be crazy contraptions. And it can be social activism. So I'm going to ask this again. Who here considers themselves a maker? Good. All of your hands should be up because everyone is a maker. Dale Doherty, the father of the maker movement, once said that makers are the producers and consumers. They are the shapers of the world. And after talking to hundreds of makers, these are a few tips that I recommend. Number one, look at everyday materials in different ways. This can be cardboard. Everyone has cardboard. It is easy to find, it's accessible, it's easy to manipulate, and it's everywhere. It is one of my favorite materials. I'm sure a bunch of you have played with cardboard as a kid or have dealt with it as an adult when the holidays come around and you get all those Amazon boxes. Trust me, you can do a lot with it. To take another thing from around the house is recyclables, easy to find. As a challenge for myself, I led a team this past year for the Rochester Fringe Festival to build a room out of just recyclables and easy to find materials. Here's kind of what we started out with, a little prototype. And this is taking it to the extreme. We use 1,150 one-gallon jugs, about 100 to 150 soup containers for a chandelier, and 35 pounds of hot glue. Yeah, a little extreme. And here's the final result. That is all recycled materials and materials you can find around the house. Please look at materials in unusual ways. Number two, make with others. Don't think of it as do it yourself. Think of it as do it together. Making is all about community. It's essential. It's the maker spaces. It's the large art installations. It's sharing what you love and building together. Think back to the green room a second ago. Do you think I collected all of those containers myself? It took between 75 and 100 individuals, organizations, and events to collect those jugs, and another 20 or so people to build it. Please make with others. Actually, who here remembers TEDxAllendaleColumbia from last year and the LED experience? Maybe a handful of you. So an LED throwy is just a battery, an LED, and a magnet, all held together using electrical tape. It basically lights up and you can throw it at any magnetic surface that you want. Well, yet again, to take it to the extreme, 2 years ago at the Rochester Streetlight Festival, we had a 20-foot by 60-foot wall. And we had anyone who wanted to come and attend make their own. So there was the beginning of the night. You can see some people working on their own. Maybe midway through the first night, people having fun, a lot of people were really tossing them. And here's the final result. Magical things happen when you make together. Every single one of those LED throwies is a different individual, and we had 2,000 LED throwies. Number 3, share what you make. Making is all about sharing what you're doing, how you're doing it. Just look at YouTube and Instructables, and you can find tons and tons of projects. At the Rochester Mini Maker Faire, you can find so many different unique stories because makers just want to share what they're working on, tell their stories, share their passions, and tell them all about their experiences on how they came to be and what they wanted to do. As someone who grew up with the Magic School Bus, and I hope some of you also did this line might ring a bell. Take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. Ms. Frissell said this in just about every episode, and it's a phrase that I hold clear to my heart. So making can be physically messy. It can be Legos and paint, and I'm sure for those who have worked in Lego, it might have some painful experiences. Trust me, you step on one once, you'll learn forever. But making can also be mentally messy. It can be dealing with problems that come up. It can be tackling issues that you never thought would occur. For anyone who's made anything, I'm sure something has gone wrong. One way or another, you need to deal with these difficulties, and making can help you think through it step by step. It can help you troubleshoot. And that is something that can carry on in every aspect of your life. But it all starts with making. Making can be fun and can be done to improve the world. Adam Savage is one of my favorite makers. You probably know him from Mythbusters, but he does a ton of making elsewhere. I highly recommend you look up his other work online. He once said that it doesn't matter what you make or why you make it, it just matters that you're making. And I would say that's pretty true, because making can be done to both improve the world, such as Enable and their 3D printed prosthetics, and that has helped hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of people around the world. But it can also be less than serious, with a test of strength machine that shoots out flames just because. So making can be both serious and silly. And I like to leave with this. Curiosity is at the heart of all makers. It's that what if question. It stands really strong at the heart of everyone. What if I was to build this with this different material? What if I was to tear this out? How does it work? What if and curiosity is really at the heart, because we wouldn't really get the chance to explore new making, new ideas without being curious. And with that, I like to say, please go out and make. At the end of today, go home, tear something apart, bake a meal together, share experiences, and just make. Thank you very much.